Picture this. It's November 1941. You are in the middle of the Cyrenacan desert. The heat is a physical weight on your shoulders, and the dust, it's everywhere. It's in your eyes, your lungs, and most importantly, it's inside your tank's air filters. Brief pause. You are part of the 15th Panzer Division, the pride of Erwin Rommel's Afrika Corps. You've just spent the morning outmaneuvering a British column, hitting them from the sun where they couldn't see you. You are the warrior knight of the desert. You are winning. But then, as you prepare for the final charge toward the Egyptian border, your engine coughs. Pause, it sputters. And then, silence. You check the gauges. You aren't hit. You haven't thrown a track. You've simply run out of fuel. You look back across the dunes for your supply trucks, but there's nothing but a shimmering heat haze. General Erwin Rommel was a master of the battlefield, a man who could see a tactical opening before his opponents even knew they were in danger. But during Operation Crusader, the Desert Fox discovered a terrifying truth. In modern warfare, a genius without a fuel truck is just a man standing in the sand. Today, we're looking at the battle that broke the myth of Panzer invincibility. This isn't just a story of guns and grit. It's the story of how a British mobile factory and a 1-3 logistics ratio defeated the greatest tactical mind of the Third Reich. Welcome to WW2 Battlegrounds. To understand Operation Crusader, we have to understand the geography of the North African campaign. This was a war without midtones. There were no cities to capture, no civilian populations to pacify. It was a war fought along a single thin coastal road stretching thousands of miles across Libya and Egypt. By late 1941, the stakes couldn't be higher. Rommel had the British on the run, but he was stuck. He was laying siege to the port of Tobruk, a small, battered harbor held by the rats of Tobruk, mostly Australians who refused to quit. Source: The Rommel Papers. Tobruk was a thorn in Rommel's side because it sat right on his supply line. As long as the British held Tobruk, Rommel had to drive his trucks hundreds of miles around it through the deep, soft sand of the desert. On the other side, the British had just formed the Eighth Army. They had a new commander, General Claude Auchinleck, and a massive influx of equipment from the United States under Lend-Lease. They had hundreds of new tanks, the fast but fragile Crusader, the sturdy Valentine, and the American M3 Stuart, which the British nicknamed the Honey because they loved how smoothly it ran. The goal of Operation Crusader was simple: relieve Tobruk, destroy Rommel's armor, and kick the Axis out of Cyrenaica for good. On paper, it looked like a standard armored clash. But beneath the surface, it was a test of two different civilizations. Let's talk about the 1-3 ratio. This is the math that Rommel tried to ignore, but eventually, it broke him. In the desert, every mile you move away from your port is a mile of danger. Rommel's main supply port was Tripoli. From Tripoli to the front lines at the Egyptian border was a staggering 1,000 miles. Think about that. 1,000 miles of one-way driving on a single road. A German Panzer III consumed roughly 1 gallon of fuel every single mile when driving through soft sand. To keep a single Panzer division operational for 1 day of heavy combat, Rommel needed 300 tons of fuel and ammunition. Source: Supplying War by Martin van Creveld. Here is where the logistics get brutal. To deliver 1 ton of fuel to the front, a truck has to carry enough fuel to get itself there and back. By the time a German truck reached the Egyptian border from Tripoli, it had consumed nearly 3 times the amount of fuel it was actually delivering. This is the logistical vacuum. The further Rommel advanced, the weaker he became. The British, meanwhile, were falling back toward their own massive supply hubs in Egypt. Their lines were getting shorter, his were stretching until they snapped. There was also the issue of the jerry can. Educational note: the jerry can, or Wehrmacht's canister, was a 20-liter fuel container. It was a masterpiece of engineering, sturdy, stackable, and leak-proof. The British, early in the war, were using what they called flimsies, thin 4-gallon tin cans that leaked almost 20% of their contents before they even reached the tanks. You could literally track a British column by the trail of spilled petrol in the sand. But even with a better fuel can, Rommel couldn't beat the map. He was a master of the fluid maneuver, but in the desert, fluid maneuvers require actual fluid. By November 18th, when the British launched their attack, Rommel's tanks were already operating on a knife edge of starvation. Now, let's look at why the British were like a factory that moved. This is where the Aracord parallel really shines. In the desert, a tank battle doesn't usually end with every tank being blown to pieces. Instead, tanks break down. A shell hits the track, the engine overheats, or a gear snaps. If you are a German tanker in 1941 and your Panzer III breaks down, your options are limited. The Germans had very few heavy recovery vehicles. If they couldn't fix it on the spot with a hammer and a prayer, the crew often had to blow the gun breech and abandon the vehicle. To Rommel, a broken tank was a dead tank. But the British had a secret weapon: the REME, Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, and their Light Aid Detachments, or LADs. The British operated under a different philosophy. They viewed the desert as a giant repair shop. They used the Scammell Pioneer, a massive 6-wheeled recovery tractor that looked like something out of a steampunk novel. During Operation Crusader, the British developed a recovery machine. If a Crusader tank was hit or broke down, a Scammell Pioneer would roar up under the cover of smoke or darkness. They would hook the tank up and tow it back to a mobile workshop just 5 miles behind the lines. There, mechanics would work through the night. They had spare engines stacked in crates. They had mobile welding units. While Rommel was waiting for new tanks to arrive on ships from Germany, ships that were often being sunk by the Royal Navy, the British were simply recycling their losses. Pause for effect. Statistically, during the height of the battle, the British were losing more tanks per day than the Germans. If you just looked at the kill count, you'd think Rommel was winning. But because of the recovery system, the British were able to return 40% of their damaged tanks to the front lines within 48 hours. Source: The Crucible of War by Barrie, Pitt. Rommel was fighting a warrior's war. The British were running an industrial assembly line. And in a war of attrition, the assembly line always wins. This all came to a head on November 24, 1941. In a moment, history calls the dash to the wire. Rommel, frustrated by the stubborn British defense, decided to do what he did best: a massive, high-speed armored raid deep into the British rear. He took his panzers and raced toward the Egyptian border, the wire, hoping to cause a panic that would make the Eighth Army collapse. It was a brilliant tactical move. It sent the British command into a tailspin. General Cunningham, the British commander on the ground, wanted to retreat. But here is where the system took over. While Rommel was dashing, he was moving away from his own supply trucks. His panzers were burning their last drops of fuel to chase a psychological victory. Meanwhile, the British soldiers at the supply dumps didn't panic. They looked at their manuals, they stayed in their positions, and they kept the fuel and ammunition flowing to the front. General Auchinleck famously stepped in and told his commanders, "Halt, maintain, and fight." He realized that Rommel was like a boxer who had thrown a massive haymaker but had no balance left. Rommel reached the border, but he found nothing but empty desert. He had no infantry to hold the ground, and more importantly, he had no fuel to get back. His dash had been a logistical suicide mission. While Rommel was stuck at the border waiting for fuel, the British 7th Armored Division, the Desert Rats, was busy recapturing the ground he had just left. By the time the Fox turned around, his path was blocked by a fresh wall of British steel, repaired and refueled by that mobile factory we talked about. So, what are the lessons of Operation Crusader? First, the tactical lesson. Armored warfare is not just about the teeth, the tanks, and the guns. It is about the tail. If you cannot protect your supply line, your armor is just a collection of very expensive stationary targets. Second, the strategic impact. Operation Crusader was the first time a British-led force defeated a German-led force in a major campaign. It proved that the panzers weren't invincible. It showed that even a genius like Rommel could be defeated if you attacked his system rather than his personality. Finally, the universal principle. We often hear the phrase, amateurs study tactics. Professionals study logistics. Operation Crusader is the ultimate proof of that. Rommel won the Battle of the Turret, but he lost the Battle of the Fuel Can. The British didn't win because they were better tankers. They won because they were better managers of war. They built a system that could absorb losses, repair damage, and keep moving forward. By December 1941, Rommel was forced into a full retreat. He had lost 300 of his 400 tanks. Most of them weren't destroyed by British shells. They were abandoned because they ran out of gas or through a track that couldn't be repaired. Brief pause. In the end, the desert is a cruel judge. It doesn't care about your medals or your brilliant maneuvers. It only cares about the physical reality of what you brought with you. The Desert Fox was a warrior from a different era, a man who believed in the decisive stroke of the sword. But he was living in the age of the machine. The British 8th Army with its Scammell tractors, its jerry-can-clone fuel system, and its secure Mediterranean supply lines was the future. Victory in the desert wasn't found in a heroic charge. It was found in the grease on a mechanic's hands in a tent at midnight, welding a patch onto a tank that would be back in the fight by dawn. If you found this tactical breakdown of Operation Crusader valuable, make sure to subscribe to WW2 Battlegrounds. We go beyond the maps to look at the machines and systems that actually won the war. Hit that like button if you learned something new today about the mobile factory of the desert. Here's a question for you. If you were Rommel, would you have prioritized capturing Tobruk at any cost to secure your supply line, or was the dash to the wire a gamble worth taking? Let us know in the comments. Next time, we're heading to the Eastern Front to look at the industrial deathmatch of Kursk, T-34 versus Panther. Until then, this is WW2 Battlegrounds, where history meets strategy. Keep the history alive.